Welcome to part 4 of our Ireland series. Today we're going down to Blarney Castle and we're going to head to Kinsale. So after leaving Castle Care, we went down to Kinsale and checked into our new Airbnb. I'll show you around a little bit. Deb and I got up early the next morning. Everybody was still sleeping, and we kind of drove around downtown Kinsale. It was really cool. These old lodges and buildings, and you can just see how tight these roads are. I can't imagine trying to drive a truck down these roads, or God forbid there was traffic coming in the other direction. But these little neighborhoods were really interesting. You'd have a living quarters like downstairs, and in some cases just across the street you'd have local shops. So the layout was really kind of cool. Now it's just barely getting light, and we were driving over here because we saw this church up in the distance. Really pretty for sure. But yeah, it was always fun kind of driving around a little bit when there wasn't a whole lot of traffic and checking out all the scenes. And this church was amazing. It was so early in the morning, we did not opt to go in. We figured it would be closed. But again, you drive on the left side of the road in Ireland as opposed to the right side in the U.S. And what's interesting is just how narrow these streets are. You can see with people parked right there, there is no passing another car. If another car came down this road, without a doubt, you would have to stop, and one person would have to back up, or if there was nobody parked, you'd be able to do it. But other than that, just was not going to happen. So as we drove around through these neighborhoods, we just kind of looked at all of it, and you were going up in elevation, and we looked out to the side of us, and we saw this amazing view of the water and the city of Kinsale, those lights down there, and the kind of just to the right of center, that's like downtown Kinsale, right along the waterfront. It's an area where we spent a few different days and evenings. We'd go and have dinner at a little local restaurant or seafood place right along the water. Just absolutely gorgeous views. And I'm a morning guy, right? So this was wonderful for me. Get up in the morning, get a cup of coffee at the house. There was a little cappuccino machine, and then just wander around town a little bit and drive before the roads got really crazy. And even in January in Ireland, it was surprising to me how everything was so green, just so green and lush. Alright, so this is the place we're staying in Kinsale. Not a bad house rental. First bedroom right here with the bathroom. And as we go down the hallway here, there's another one. Coming out this room, we go into the next one. There's a restroom here on the right, and then this last room here. Again, nice room. The blinds are all closed because it's dark out, but beautiful outside with its own bathroom and shower here. Then coming down the hall, there's another room that'll sleep extra people with king-size bed and 2 sets of bunks, and it has its own bathroom right in the room. The first room, it's got a bathroom in there, and then, nice looking with built-in cupboards and closets. And as we come downstairs, we have another room that sleeps a ridiculous number of people. This is not a nursery, but you can get another 8 people in this room. Closets and whatnot. Yeah. You got the living room right here. Say hi, baby. You look comfortable. And going out, we go to this kitchen. And just give you an idea on the size of that island, like the pop-up vent, but the size of this island is pretty huge. It's like 9 by 14 or something. And then there's seating for 12 at the table out here.
I bet you that site looking over there by the gazebo.
It's gonna.
Fallon, look at the exhaust fan.
And the lights for it too. And then here's seating for 12 in the dining room. And outside, it's getting dark, but a little outdoor patio with a firebox. And if you look all the way up here, you can sort of see the light. I got the little one playing on the swing set. In the rain, by the way. This house really was sort of set up for relaxing. We would hang out in the living room and just shoot the crap or whatever we would do. We'd have breakfast in the morning, sometimes making coffee or tea. It was a relaxing place to spend the last part of our trip there in Ireland. But we got up the next morning and we decided to go to breakfast. And this is what's so cool to me. You know, you're driving to this place. It's a little restaurant that one of our family members found online and said, hey, let's go here. We drive up and then you see scenery like this. Just beautiful. And how do you go to Ireland and not visit Blarney Castle? It's what my mom said she absolutely wanted to do. She wanted to kiss the Blarney Stone. When we got there and we found out to kiss the Blarney Stone is not exactly easy, check this out. Mom decided not to do it, but she was absolutely excited to go to Blarney Castle. And then from there, we went to Blarney Castle. So just for a little bit of historical perspective, this is the third building built on this site. The first one was supposed to be in the 10th century, and it was a wooden hunting lodge. And then in the year of 1210, it was built into a stone castle. And then this primary structure that's still standing here today was built in 1446. So you talk about aged items, it really is wild to see all that. And there's Sis jumping into the moss-covered tree. But we decided to go on and walk up there. This is a big property, and what was really neat is, you know, you kind of wander through the whole thing and you check out the scenery, and, you know, gray skies, it doesn't look like much. Notice those little outcroppings on the top. I'll talk more about that in a minute. But again, these castles were just so massive from a stonework perspective. You wonder how that was done in, you know, the 1400s. You can see it actually looks like it's built right out of, you know, the portion of a stone wall, right? Like part of it looks natural, part of it doesn't. And then if you look up there, there's that one window. You can sort of see it's the sort of nicest balcony style window. You'll also notice the windows up here that aren't really square. They sort of have a sloped bottom right there. That is where the restrooms were, and they would use the restroom and then pour it out the sides of those castles. So you can imagine during those times how likely disgusting some of these things were. But this is, you know, probably 7 stories or so. I can't recall the exact. And, you know, you go on up and you can visit it. The staircases are very narrow. They're very wet because this is not fully enclosed. It has certainly had some damage. Unlike our last video with Castle Care, where the besiegers of the castle let the people escape, it really saved the castle from a lot of degradation. We noticed this visitor's notice. Be aware that the walk to the top of the castle is arduous. We decided to stay down at the bottom with my mom, and my sister and her husband went up to go kiss the Blarney Stone. But while they did, Deb and I found these little stones and stuff and rocks, just loose rocks laying around. We thought, how cool, we got a grandkid that loves rocks. So can you imagine being able to show her that video of where this came from? I thought she would find that really interesting. The grounds, like everything in Ireland, you know, here it is in January and they're lush and green and gorgeous. It was beautiful. Now, if you look up, you'll see some people up there. Didn't really know what that was when we were down there playing in the stockades, but that is actually the Blarney Stone. And you get up on the roof of this thing, you lean over, there's an assistant there to help hold you. You hold those bars, and you lean out over this thing, hang your head upside down, and kiss the Blarney Stone. And there's my brother-in-law on the video when we were down by the gift shop. We happened to see their pictures come up right at that time, and there is my sister doing the exact same thing. So really a cool experience. I'm glad they were able to go up. Because the weather was cold and a little bit drizzly, very few people were up there, and she said they went straight to the top without any wait. And then I heard, hey, Gil, and looked up, and there they were waving down at us while we were at the bottom. When you go inside of this castle and you look out on the grounds, it is amazing. And you can sort of, I know it's not Irish heritage, but you think of Braveheart and people coming across those green fields. Inside the castle, where you could go through and look at it, you can definitely tell it wasn't in the same condition as Cahir Castle, but it was absolutely huge, and the depth and thickness of the walls was truly amazing as well. Just like the other castles, there was, of course, the murder hole and the gates that they could lift up and protect. A lot of this was in a bit of ruins. You can see where one floor was missing and where they've patched other things up. But even the curved roof that you can sort of see in the distance there, just lovely. It really is. Then we went up to the curtain wall. From the outside, you can sort of walk up along this curtain wall, and this is where they would defend, if they needed to, the castle from anybody that was coming up to invade it. But the views were just beautiful. Like, I was still really shocked. I kind of said, wow, we're going at the wrong time of year. Everything's going to be brown. The days will be short. And while that was true, the days were short, the greenness of grass and leaves and lush moss was everywhere, just as wet as this is. And I just thought this was interesting. When you step back and you look at it and you sort of zoom in, it looks a lot like a rook on the chessboard. You can see those top pieces. And then we started walking the grounds, and we spent hours out here. These little outcroppings were probably parts of where the curtain wall went all the way around this to have other families living within the walls of the castle, if not in the castle itself. The trees were amazing as well. Some of these things were hundreds of years old, as big around as 5 of me. And then they had this stump garden. I don't know what else to call it. But with all the moss growing on it, it just looked, serene and peaceful. You would sort of wander through. The tiki head seemed a little out of place for Ireland, but it was still beautiful. And as you walked around the grounds, these were green, fuzzy trees in so many areas here. And this wasn't something they just did here. This is just the way it is, with the moisture and the moss growing on all of these structures. Now here's what's cool. Deb and I went to the backside of this property, and the people that own Blarney Castle have a home in the back of it. This is their home. It is absolutely stunning. It reminds me of something out of Downton Abbey, but you read the history here, and these folks come out of the castle during the peak summertime, and they'd stay away from the property. Just phenomenal. And Deb and I found this little garage area showing some of the historic cars and vehicles, and it was right next to a little coffee shop, so we sat and grabbed some coffee while the rest of the folks kind of wandered out a little bit further. But everywhere you went on this property was another scene that was just beautiful. And even here, we were just walking along, and we see this old rickety walkway with a handle, and then these beautiful scenes of waterfalls kind of coming off of the stones in the background. Absolutely stunning. So the next morning, it was bright and early, and Deb and I had noticed we weren't far from the coast when we saw some scenery the morning earlier we were driving. So we drove out. It was only about 10 miles away or so to the coastline, and it was really cool looking, very rustic. It was a low tide, and this is clearly a shallow base of water here, so you could see that it was exposing a lot of the rocks and mussels and clams and seaweed and everything along the seabed. But the scenery was beautiful, and while it was really cold, it was absolutely gorgeous. At one point, we got out and we were walking along the beach here, and then we saw this little, it looked like a little wooden trailer, and in it was a sauna, and people would get out of the sauna, they would walk down to the water, get in the water, and then come back up and get back into the sauna. It was crazy. But then we decided we were going to drive to Kinsale, and on that drive, we happened to see this little church in the distance. This was the St. Martin's Temple Martin, and it was beautiful, but we knew it was aged. A square temple as opposed to a pointed one typically refers to an older structure of medieval times. And as we walked back here, we saw a lot of gravestones from the 1700s. So it was really neat to kind of wander through this, obviously being very respectful since we were in a cemetery and it was on the backside of a church. The church was closed. I would have loved to have been able to go walk inside of this little church here. So we were heading to Killarney specifically to go to Aaron's Sweater Market. It's this cool store that actually makes the knit patterns of the different Irish clans. My mom was able to find the clan name for her maiden name as well, and it was really neat that we were able to go in, buy a sweater and a throw blanket, and these things were absolutely beautiful and comfortable. I considered getting one, but what am I going to do with a sweater in Florida? But man, were they nice looking, and they absolutely felt amazing. I've never worn cashmere, but I have a sense this might have been what it was like. But this downtown area of Kinsale, we wandered up and down and walked into a bunch of gift shops, and we had a meal down here, and we went into a little bar and had a drink. It was a really cool little downtown area, primarily based on shopping, but you could just see, this sort of dated nature of it was beautiful. Well, I really hope you enjoyed this little trip to Ireland and spending a little bit of time watching these videos of our travel. Honestly, this was wonderful for us. This was sort of a thing we've always wanted to do. We've talked about it for a long time. Mom was getting up in age at 80 years old, and finally we were able to take her on this trip to Ireland. Not only exciting for her, but exciting for all of us to do something like this together. So I hope you enjoyed this. We'll get back to cooking on the Black Stone and the Pit Boss.